and welcome to Stephen University. This week we are discussing Watermelon Stephen, an episode in which Stephen and his dad decide to have a gross watermelon spitting seeds competition thing that accidentally leads to, of course, Stephen's magical gem spit merging with the watermelon seeds to create Watermelon Stevens, quite literally, many of them, which then, because he has no control over this power he evidently has, it all gets a bit out of hand. He tries to sell them to the town, and then it all gets a bit violent, and in the end, a small baby version of it has to die to teach them a lesson, and they go off into the ocean to take a time out. It's an odd episode on the whole, but I think I'd say on the whole I enjoy it. But I'm very curious, Chris, as always. What'd you think?
Freaked the fuck out of me, those little watermelons. I just found them really freaky. Like, didn't like them, Dan. Didn't like them at all. They were alive. People were possibly eating them. I just wouldn't buy them. I wouldn't buy watermelons shaped like a boy anyway, let alone shaped like the boy I was buying them off of.
I mean,
Weird.
but if you were walking down the street right now and someone was selling watermelons and they were shaped like the person selling them, you wouldn't for a minute in our human reality think that they were also alive. You would just think they were very cleverly designed or shaped melons. You wouldn't think much of that. But of course,
If I was buying them off of a kid who had a gem in his stomach,
well, that's what I was about to say. In the world of Steven Universe, should be suspicious because weird shit happens all the time. Yeah.
I'm suspicious of everything, man.
It's true.
I wouldn't be buying it. I thought it was fine. I thought, especially compared to last week's fiasco, I thought it was a good episode. I thought that, like you say, there was some kind of hyper-violent animation, which was a bit of fun towards the end there.
Because they're watermelons, so you can do that. So you can show like Garnet like shooting off her like fist things and making them explode, and that's like. It's fine because like they're watermelons, so you can see bits of them going everywhere, and it's within the limits of what you can show a kid.
Yeah. They went right up to the line, I feel.
Oh yeah,
yeah. Without a doubt. But no, it was good. It's one of those ones where it's not astounding, but it's good. It had some nice. I thought the whilst played out in a slightly over-the-top fashion, the gesture of the baby watermelon, like killing himself to prove a point and stuff, was pretty deep, and was pretty like, whoa. I don't know if it was powerful, especially undermined by the admittedly good gag of Stephen eating him at the end.
Yeah.
And the look of disgust on the others' faces. But
it is slightly undermined, but it's also that's kind of what makes that funny. Because if they didn't have such an absolute fuss about the fact he died, seeing Stephen pinch a bit and have a little nibble would not be anywhere near as funny. So that's a weird balance to get that because, and I don't know if the show got it right or not. I'm just saying like that's tricky. Because,
I'm not sure they did.
Yeah, because I think the joke is funnier the more dramatic you play it, but of course the more dramatically you play it, having the joke then undercuts that drama. So it's like you can't have your cake and eat it too here. You are really you are stuck with one or the other. So it's like decide basically how you want to play it. It is an odd one though for so many reasons. I mean, it's a little bit. You could argue though that in terms of the actual abilities, it's quite clever because the idea of Rose being able to turn plant life sentient is actually very much in line with what we've seen in the past. I mean, it just seems, although admittedly it is now becoming a point where it's like, Jesus, how many powers did Rose secretly have that Steven's going to discover as he goes, I'm pretty sure our gems don't have this many powers.
Yeah,
it seems like every other week we reveal something else that Rose could do.
Yeah, and it also a little bit like how long until the list of shit Steven can accidentally do is so big that we're not just like every week, well, why hasn't he accidentally birthed a child of strawberries this week? Like, will it reach that point? But Yeah, it's weird. Like, I'm surprised by how much. I mean, I like it, but they're chucking so much mythology at the wall these days. They're just like, they're just throwing them away. Like, oh yeah, he could potentially make plants come to life to fight his battles. Like, what? Oh, all right, fine. Yeah.
Yeah, no,
But also, like, there's now an army of fucking creepy watermelons out there in the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's weird.
It is weird. Do you want to know if that ever comes back or not?
Yeah.
Just to clarify that, because this is technically spoilery, is that something you definitely want to know?
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'll tell you right now, there is an episode in the future called Super Watermelon Island.
Oh, no, I don't want to watch that. That's the point I'm going to give up. I don't want to see a whole island of them. That's the point I'm out. How far until that?
I mean, I'm hoping you're kidding. Because we put a lot of time and effort into this podcast.
When does it air, that episode?
It's a while away. It's a good while away. It's not. You know what? It's so long away.
Enjoy this while you can, Dan.
It's so long away that I remember when I originally watched through them, I forgot briefly about the Watermelon Stevens, and then like when the episode cropped up, I was like, "Wait, what?" Because the episode Super Watermelon Island makes no effort to catch you up on this one. So it just starts with that, and you're like, "Wait, what now?" Oh yeah, that's right. These guys still exist.
That's weird.
I think it's episode 79. So we'll probably.
Did you not find them creepy?
Not at all. No, not even slightly. I think that what I liked, to be honest with you, I kind of found them a little bit cute and innocent. Like I understood that they were attacking, but it was. I think the episode to me did a good job of making it clear that was more out of Steven's inability to properly control his own creations. So I don't know. I kind of liked it. In that sense.
When I have kids, I'm never going to trust your opinion. If you're like, oh, they're cute, I'll be like, yeah, but your benchmark for cute is fucking low. It's animated watermelons.
I thought they were fine. You know what? I think it's partly that they're food. I think the idea that they're also food weirds you out more. If they were just like weird plant Stevens, you wouldn't be anywhere near as weirded out. But it's a watermelon. I think, to my knowledge, you quite enjoy eating as well. So that can't have helped.
I do like watermelon, yeah, but I don't feel like I associated the two. I genuinely thought the design of them was a bit creepy. Honestly, I did. I was sort of cringing watching it.
Oh, weird.
Nice to get some dad bonding.
Yes, as weird and gross as it was lovely to see them playing around like that.
Yeah, that was cool. It was nice to see the gems protecting Steven and getting ready to kind of suit up, as it were, and that whole fight, between them and watermelons was very visually engaging, like we've said.
Well, it's the show's continued commitment to giving the gems new sort of things you've not seen them do before. Like we've never seen Garnet launch her gloves like that, and we've never seen Pearl sort of shoot whatever that beam thing was out at the end of her what do we call it? From her spear. She had like an energy blast thing that came out of her spear, and that is both like that's ranged capabilities that we didn't know either of those weapons had. So that's that, and it's things like that keep you sort of engaged in a fight like that, because you're not just seeing the same old. They're not just doing the same things they've done in every other fight. They're doing new things, and that's always interesting.
What's the difference, Dan, between a spear and a staff?
It's got a blade at the end, Chris.
Is that the difference?
Mm-hmm.
I thought a staff. No, I suppose a staff can. Okay, so what's the difference between a staff and a big stick?
Very little. I mean, maybe it's shaped and designed to be because a big stick, I suppose, the implication is you've found a big stick, whereas a staff is a shaped, designed, sort of like human crafted object, whereas a big stick is a large stick you've stumbled across in the woods.
Yeah, a staff is a stick for committed people.
Yeah.
For people that want to take the time to turn stick to staff.
Well, it's funny because I went to Glastonbury a couple of years ago, and there was a wood design, wood carving section that they'd done in one of the weird hippie fields where everyone was just making stuff, with like feathers and glitter, and it was all a bit odd just to see everyone. There's all this music going on elsewhere, and everyone else is just like, I'm gonna choose this to have a weekend where I carve a staff out of a big chunk of wood, but there was at least 2 or 3 people doing that, and they were incredible. They were these big ornate. It obviously started with a much larger piece of wood and had beautifully carved out this ornate staff with like a skull at the top or whatever, and it was incredibly impressive. Don't get me wrong, but it was also a really odd time. I mean, if I had that skill, I wouldn't be that. I'm not cracking that out at Glastonbury. You know what I mean? I'm
You probably are, though, if you think about it. Because if you've got that skill, you've cracked it out every other occasion you can crack it out. Like, there'd be Christmases and people would be like, oh, here he goes again.
making a staff.
Fucking making a staff out of the turkey. What a bellend.
Yeah.
I feel like, Dan, we've run out of things to say on this episode.
Well, no, I got a few little things to add. Nothing huge, but I thought it was really cool to see, as in terms of another ability, Amethyst used a sort of a spin dash type attack, where she sort of span into a ball and then flew at them. That's actually, well, it's a reference to Sonic the Hedgehog, but that is also a new ability we've not seen from her before. I thought that was really cool. I think that if you think back to it, like I think I sort of hinted at this earlier, but this sort of, I think they call it cytokinesis, which is this ability to like talk, like communicate mentally with or control mentally plants. And we've seen it a few times because we have seen, we've Rose has done it before with like, as we mentioned earlier, the moss, but it's also, if you remember when they went to her like garden, there was like a thorn bush that was like sentient and was moving and attacking. So it's very much within her range of powers.
She's the gardener of the gang.
Yeah, sort of. Yeah.
And they've not played on that too much with Steve. You know what I mean? They've not shown Stephen to be other. I know he's done this, but it's not like there's the episode where Stephen's determined to play outside. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Sadie did have her scar, by the way.
I love Sadie. She's committed to local businesses.
Mm-hmm.
She's putting up with Lars.
Put up with Stephen a little bit in this because and Ronaldo, because he comes over and starts like doing his blog post, and Stephen's just watching him instead of continuing the sale.
Yeah.
Rude.
If I was to crush on anyone from Steven Universe, then Sadie is a good second place.
That's fair. The thing is, though, I think Fandom has ruined things like that for me.
I'm so upset that you didn't ask me who was first. But anyway, no,
let's go back a second. Sorry, you didn't put her first, so she's second. Who's first?
Yeah, that's what I said. Yeah. I said she would make a great second place.
Oh, I'm a little bit. Okay. I misheard. I assumed you put her in first place. Clarify who the hell is first.
Obviously, Pearl. Obviously,
right. Okay.
What? Why is Fandom worried stuff like Fandom ruined stuff like that?
Well, you know, because I'm assuming you're sort of thinking like the character is so endearing, you can have like a sort of like affection for them that exists.
Yeah, I don't mean it in like a weird, creepy way. I'm not being like, I fancy Sadie.
That's what I'm saying. So the problem we have is that Fandom, as I'm sure you know, is it called Rule 36 or whatever in the internet? If it exists, there is porn of it. And while I haven't ever, thankfully, stumbled across, accidentally or intentionally, Steven Universe porn, I did see I know, and I guarantee you, dude, it's out there. I thankfully I've avoided that, but I'm sure it exists. But I did see an amazing. It was both really funny and really creepy. Sort of fan comic, and it was Sadie and Lars at the behind the counter at the Big Donut, and basically the gag is at the end, Sadie's like, "I'm not sure why you're not into me. I've got double D's and I'm at crotch height," and I just thought the implication is too much there for me. Yeah. So things like that ruin that sort of like I can't even think of Sadie in sort of like a sweet sort of like, oh, isn't she an adorable character sort of way? Because the internet will ruin it for me just by default. Right. I mean,
let us know your Steven fanfic below.
Yeah, in the comment section, please post some of the weird nonsense you found. Nothing.
Have you
ever
read?
Nothing beyond that.
Have you ever read any sexy fanfic for any show?
Not intentionally.
Yeah.
I've stumbled across stuff in fandoms.
What have you stumbled across?
What's that, sorry?
What have you stumbled across?
I was reading Doctor Who fanfic, and one of them got a bit porny.
A bit saucy. Fair enough. I've never read Doctor Who. I've accidentally read Office-based stuff.
Was it the same situation where it just started as normal fanfic and then went off the rails and you were like, what the hell happened?
Yeah. And then that made me go, I wonder if there's... And then I opened a whole door to that side of things. And yeah.
Because that's the thing is, I don't read a lot of fanfic. I'm not a fanfic guy. Generally speaking, I tend to trust the creators of the thing I'm watching and enjoying to tell the stories. But occasionally there are fan things that, the Steven Universe, particularly fandom, is very creative. So I on the subreddit, I will see they've done webcomics and pictures, and there's some really nice ideas out there and some really well done stuff. But generally speaking, I avoid it. But occasionally, I'll just I'll see a title of something and think that sounds interesting, and I will read it. Hence how I stumbled on that Doctor Who one. But as a rule, they're not something I follow. But I will say, credit to the Steven Universe fan base. Of all the fan bases and fandoms I'm aware of, the Steven Universe one is possibly the most creative and has created the most interesting stuff. What I find sometimes after a big episode airs is there'll be a moment that sort of they'll have found a small gap in the storytelling and have a small story about that and make it really brilliantly emotional and very well done. I can't think of any examples off the top of my head, but every time an episode airs, I will then go straight to the Steven Universe subreddit and just start flicking through. Sometimes it's people doing little webcomics making fun of what we just saw, and sometimes it's people doing some really clever storytelling, filling in gaps and stuff. And even though they're not canon, obviously, they're always entertaining. So credit to the Steven Universe fan base for not for not producing mounds and mounds of shit.
Yeah,
which is what many fandoms do end up doing. So as much as I mock them for that Sadie joke.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I'm sure it's out there though.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it has to be.
Mental note to Google after. Do you have any other notes?
Well, next week I'm now going to ask you if you actually did Google that. No, that's about everything I had to say. It ultimately, though, I don't think it's a bad episode, but it's also not a particularly noteworthy episode because it doesn't. It is funny. There is some good action, but it doesn't have the emotional character punch that some of these episodes have had. And when the show has proven it can do all of the above successfully, when they just focus on one thing, they have to either do it really, really well to justify not doing the other stuff, otherwise the episode just comes across as average. Does that make sense? I don't know if what I said makes sense. I'm just talking about from a practical perspective. If you're going to say, okay, this week we're just going to do comedy and action, we're not going to do so much on the character mythology, that side of things. Even though there were some mythology hints though, but on the whole, they're not doing much of that. So it's like, okay, in that case, you need to make this the funniest and most action-packed episode. If that's where you're leaning, this has to be amazing at that to justify pulling back on the other stuff. And instead, it just was as funny and as action-packed as any other episode, but without the emotional stuff. So it ended up feeling average rather than exceptional, and that's what happens.
But not average enough for if you were watching it in a more normal way, you to not be like, oh, that was fine. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
I don't think if you were just watching this, I don't think enjoyment would be hindered.
No, it wouldn't. You're right.
Going, I think that was average.
I think if you watch this though, and someone forced you to sit down and talk about it for 20 minutes, then it'd be a different situation.
Actually, if you watch this, you'd be going, well, "That was fucking better than Garnet's Universe," which is what came before it. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's true. So there you go. That's everything. The next episode is telling you the title for this one is going to intrigue and excite you. I think the next episode is called Lion 3: Straight to Video.
Wait.
And I know you love a good Lion episode. So yeah, that is everything for this week. I've been Dan Doolan.
I've been Chris Billingham.
And we'll see you next week as we discuss Lion 3: Straight to Video.